Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will begin building a feature that will allow signed-in users to manage their own personal My Notes section. So if a user takes their laptop into one of their university classes, they can create a new note, maybe title it Biology Lecture Number 4, okay, and then within the main body field, they can type out any notes they want to take. Users will also be able to update or edit an existing note as well as delete one of their notes. The reason we're going to do this is because it's a great exercise to learn about the other 3 letters in CRUD. Remember, the CRUD acronym stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. Up until this point in the course, we've only learned about the R, how to read or load in data from the database. Well, now it's time to learn about creating, updating, and deleting. So without further ado, let's begin building our My Notes feature. Alright, so where do we begin? Well, we want users to be able to manage their notes right from the front end of our website. So for the first step, why don't we create a brand new page and name it My Notes, and then we can link to it up in the header navigation. So over in the admin dashboard, under Pages, let's select Add New. For the title, I will say My Notes. It doesn't need any body content. Then let's go ahead and publish that. We can view it on the front end by using this permalink here. Okay, and before we add a link that points towards this new page up in the header, why don't we first go create a unique page template in our theme folder to power this screen? Because right now it's powered by page.php, but we know that we are going to need custom code here to allow users to manage their notes. So over in our text editor, just in the root of our theme folder, let's create a brand new file, and let's name it page dash, and then we just want to perfectly match the slug of the new page, which was my dash notes, and then .php. Okay, and in order to save a ton of typing, why don't we just copy and paste everything from page.php as a starter template and then customize it as necessary. So in Page, let's just copy everything into our clipboard, and then back in our brand new file, paste it in, and then let's scroll up to the very top, and we can actually get rid of most of this code. So we want to keep this div with a class of container, but right below it, let's start deleting from the beginning of this PHP block here, and let's just select all the way down to include this div with a class of generic content. Let's just delete all of that. So all that we are left with, let me indent here, all that we are left with is the generic header code, generic footer code, and this one empty div with a class of container. So within it, just as a temporary placeholder, you can say custom code will go here, and then if we give that a save and refresh, perfect. Okay, now before we actually build out the user interface for the My Notes feature, why don't we first create a link to this new page up in our header navigation? Let's set things up so that if you're not logged in, you do not see a link to My Notes, but once you are logged in, maybe directly to the left of the Log Out button, we can have a light orange button named My Notes. So to make that happen, back in our editor, let's jump into header.php, and let's scroll down to the bottom. Remember, we've got this if statement here, so if someone is logged in, they see this. If someone is not logged in, they see this. So we want to add new code to this section, but why don't we go ahead and use the light orange login button as a template? So we can just copy that. And then up in this block for logged in users, let's just add a new line and paste in our clipboard. And within this code that we just pasted, let's change the word login to say My Notes. And then let's just update the href value. So we'll keep the PHP block and keep the echo, but let's delete this WP login URL. And instead, let's say site URL, and just point someone towards /my notes. Okay, and remember to keep things extra secure, you can wrap this within escape URL. Open parentheses here, close the sandwich of parentheses here. Okay, let's give that a save. Perfect. So if I go back to the home page, now I can get back to the My Notes screen by clicking up here. But if someone visits our website and they are not logged in, like we see in this private window here, they don't see the My Notes button, they just see a login button. Cool, but what if a logged out user just goes right up to the address bar and manually types in My Notes? Well, since this page is going to contain data that's specific to a logged in user, it doesn't make sense for a logged out user to even be able to visit this URL. So right now, let's go write a bit of code in our new page template so that if a visitor is not logged in, we just redirect them to the home page. So to do that, back in our text editor, back in our page My Notes template, up at the very top here, let's just write a new if statement. So if parentheses, curly brackets. And for the condition check, let's say is user logged in, which is a function, so it gets its own set of parentheses. So this will return true if a user is logged in, but if we want to check for the opposite of that, we can just begin with an exclamation point. So now, if a user is not logged in, this will evaluate to true, and if that's the case, let's just redirect them. So WP redirect. Within these parentheses, where do we want to redirect them to? Let's just say site URL, send them back to the home page or just a slash. And then if you wanted to, you could wrap this within escape URL. Okay, now after this redirect line, we want to be sure to run exit so that once it performs the redirect, it can stop and rest and not use server resources. All right, let's go ahead and save that and test it out. So in the window where I'm not logged in, you can see it automatically redirected me to the home page. So if I go to My Notes manually, it just kicks me back to the home page. So with that in place, let's jump back into the window where we are logged in, and now let's ask ourselves the question, where are we actually going to save the notes that we create? Well, we want to save them into the WordPress database, so why don't we just create a new custom post type and name it Note? So we've been through this before. We know exactly how to create a new custom post type. Jump over to your text editor, and instead of your theme folder, look within your must use or MU plugins folder. And within this file, where we've registered all of our other custom post types, why don't we scroll down to the very bottom? And in order to save a bunch of extra typing, I'm just going to copy and paste the professor post type and use it as a template. So copy, and then right below it, paste it in. All right, let's update the comment to Note post type. Let's change the short name or variable name for the post type to Note. Okay, then let's go through each of these properties one by one. So for starters, show in REST, we definitely want that so that we can work with the custom post type from the REST API. So make sure that you've got show in REST equals true. For supports, let's keep title and editor, but we do not need thumbnail. For public, let's be sure to set this to false, because we want our notes to be private and specific to each user account. We don't want a note post to show up in public queries or in search results. So setting public to false will take care of that. However, public false will also hide the post type in the admin dashboard. So to get the best of both worlds, on a new line, we can say show UI equals true. I know this name is a bit confusing. It would be more intuitive if it read show in the admin dashboard UI. Okay, next let's update our labels. So I'm just going to select the base word of professor, leave off the S, and then remember you can press Command or Control D if you're using the Atom text editor or Sublime Text, and that will select the next instance. And then you can just type and it will modify all of them at once. Okay, and then finally, let's choose a unique icon that will be used in the admin dashboard for this post type. Let's keep Dashicons welcome, but let's delete the learn more. And let's say Dashicons welcome write blog. And this should give us an icon that looks like you're writing a note. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. And then back in the admin dashboard, cool, there is our new custom post type, notes. Now I do want to point out that as of this moment, subscriber accounts cannot create a note. And this is because we have not set up custom permissions for the post type yet. Don't worry, we will get to that shortly. But for now, make sure that you're signed in with your admin account, and let's get things up and running before we worry about giving subscriber accounts the necessary permissions. Okay, now before we learn how to create a note post from the front end of our website, before we do that, why don't we cheat a bit and create a note or two from the admin backend? So under notes, I will say add new. I will give it a title of biology lecture number 4. And for the body, let's just say I learned 5,000 amazing things in class today. This was the best biology lecture ever. Okay, then let's go ahead and save that. And just for good measure, why don't we create a second dummy post? So click add new again. Let's say math lecture number 1. Math class was great today. I learned that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and I got an A+ on my test. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, and now back on the front end of our website, within the My Notes page, let's create HTML form elements right about here that would let the user make edits to those existing notes of theirs. Let me show you what I mean. So back in our text editor, for now, let's forget about the MU plugins folder and jump back to our theme folder. And I want you to jump into the page My Notes template. Okay, and remember we've got this container div where at the moment it just says custom code will go here. So let's delete that and instead create an unordered list element. Okay, and on the opening UL tag, just for styling reasons, let's give it a class of min list as well as link list. And while we're at it, why don't we also give this element an ID so that we can easily select it with our JavaScript code later on. Let's give it an ID of my notes. All right, then within the unordered list, we want to create one list item for each note post. So let's query the WordPress database to retrieve any relevant note posts. So drop into PHP, and let's create a variable and name it user notes and set it to equal a new instance of WP query. Right? This is how we can ask the database for only the exact posts that we are interested in. So within these parentheses, let's create an array, and this is where we spell out what we're looking for. So first of all, we only want a certain post type. So let's set post type to equal note. Okay, and then we want to gather all notes, not just the most recent 10. So let's say posts per page equals -1 to give us all of them. And then finally, and most importantly, let's be sure to set author to only give us posts that were created by the currently logged in user. So we can just say get current user ID, which is a function. Cool, and this is the line that makes things user specific. So now that we've got this collection of posts named user notes, we just want to loop through the collection and display each one. So right after this semicolon, let's just add a new line. And let's create a while loop. So while parentheses, curly brackets. And for the condition, we'll say while user notes which is the name of our WP query object. And then we can just look inside it, and as long as have posts returns true, keep on looping. Okay, then within the loop, the first thing we want to do is call user notes the post to get the relevant data ready for that particular post that's been looped through. And now after this, I want to write out a bit of HTML. So I can just drop out of PHP here, and then right before the closing curly bracket, we can jump back into PHP. And now in between these two lines, we can write HTML. So let's just create a list item for each note post. And within the list item, let's create two elements. First, let's create an input. And then below that, let's create a text area. Let me scroll down a bit so the text is centered in the screen a bit more. Okay, we're going to use the input to display the title of each post, and we can use the text area to display the main body content. So on the input, let's say value equals, and then let's drop into PHP to go fetch the title. So let's echo out the results of get the title. And just to keep things extra secure, in WordPress, whenever you're using information from the database as the value for an HTML attribute, you want to wrap it within a function named escape attr, which is short for attribute. So then I will close out the parentheses sandwich right here. Okay, and then let's do the same thing for the body field or the main content. So in between the text area sandwich, let's drop into PHP. And let's echo out get the content. And again, we want to escape this using escape attribute. Cool. Now, before we save this and see what it looks like, let's give each of these elements a class just for CSS styling and design reasons. Let's give the input a class of note title field. And let's give the text area a class of note body field. Okay, now let's go ahead and save this. Cool, we see our two note posts, math lecture and biology lecture. Next, why don't we add two UI buttons right about here and here that read edit note and delete note. So back in our code, in between our input and text area elements, let's add a new line and create a span element. Within the span, let's say edit. Just for CSS reasons, let's give it a class of edit note. And right before the word edit, why don't we include an icon? So since we're using Font Awesome, we can just create an I tag or I element and give the opening I tag a class of FA for Font Awesome, as well as FA-pencil for a nice edit looking icon. Okay, still within the opening I tag, let's also say area hidden equals true. Okay, so this gives us an edit button. Now, why don't we just copy and paste this span, and then right below it, paste it in to duplicate it. And let's make this second one the delete button. So change the word edit to delete, and then let's change the class to delete note. And instead of FA-pencil, let's say FA-trash-O. Okay, now if I save that, cool, now we have these edit and delete buttons. Now at the moment, you can click these buttons all day long and nothing will happen. So our goal now is to hook all of this up to the WordPress REST API so that we can actually manipulate our post content from the front end of our website. And that's exactly what we're going to learn how to do in our very next lesson. So let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.